It was a freezing winter night, and the city streets glowed with neon lights reflected on puddles of melted snow. People rushed into warm restaurants, cafes, and shops, while a young boy stood alone on the corner. His clothes were torn, and his shoes were almost falling apart. Hunger had carved deep shadows under his eyes. His name was Thomas, just 12 years old. For days he had walked the streets, searching for small jobs, carrying bags, cleaning windows, anything to earn a coin. But that night, no one gave him work. His stomach ached from emptiness, and his lips trembled in the cold air. As the boy wandered down the main avenue, the delicious smell of food reached him. Fresh bread, roasted meat, and hot soup drifted from the doors of a busy restaurant. Thomas stopped, staring through the glass. Inside, families laughed, waiters served steaming plates, and warmth filled every corner. His little hands pressed against the window. He imagined himself inside, sitting at a table, eating until his hunger disappeared. But he knew he had no money, not even a single coin. His heart ached as much as his empty belly. Still, he couldn't take his eyes away from the scene. Gathering courage, Thomas pushed the heavy door open. A wave of heat and chatter surrounded him. He walked timidly toward a table at the far end, afraid someone would notice his torn clothes. The waitress approached, her eyes narrowing as she saw the boy's condition. "What do you want, kid?" she asked. Sharply, Thomas swallowed hard. His voice was almost a whisper. "Just a bowl of soup, please." The waitress frowned, ready to send him away. But before she could, a man's voice interrupted her. "Let him sit," the man said firmly. It was the restaurant owner, Mr. Johnson. He was a middle-aged man with kind eyes hidden behind a stern face. He walked over, placing a gentle hand on Thomas's shoulder. "Sit down, son," he said. "You'll have your soup." The boy's eyes widened with disbelief. Minutes later, the waitress reluctantly brought a steaming bowl of soup, along with a piece of fresh bread. Thomas grabbed the spoon with trembling hands. The first sip felt like fire and comfort at once. Tears filled his eyes as he ate, savoring every bite as if it were the last meal of his life. Mr. Johnson quietly watched from the counter. Something in the boy reminded him of his own childhood, years ago, when life had been equally cruel. He remembered nights when he had nothing but water. For dinner, that memory softened his heart toward Thomas. When Thomas finished, he wiped his mouth nervously. "Sir, I have no money," he admitted, voice breaking. "But one day, I promise I'll pay you back." Mr. Johnson smiled gently. "You don't owe me anything. Sometimes we must feed people, not for money, but for humanity." The boy stood bowing slightly. His cheeks were red with gratitude and embarrassment. "Thank you, sir. I'll never forget this." He left the restaurant and disappeared into the snowy night, carrying only the warmth of the food and the kindness of a stranger. Years passed. Thomas grew up facing hardships but never forgot the restaurant owner who fed him when he had nothing. He worked tirelessly, studied when he could, and eventually earned a scholarship to study medicine. The dream of becoming a doctor burned in his heart. His journey was not easy. There were nights when he slept hungry again, days when he felt like giving up. But every time despair whispered to him, the memory of the soup and the bread returned. That small act of kindness kept him alive with hope. Through sacrifice and persistence, Thomas completed medical school. He graduated with honors, admired for his compassion toward patients. Colleagues said he wasn't just intelligent, he had a rare empathy, as if he could feel the pain of those he treated. Meanwhile, life had not been kind to Mr. Johnson. The restaurant thrived for many years, but his health began to decline. He developed a serious illness that required long and expensive treatment. Slowly, his savings vanished, and debt grew heavier each month. One cold evening, much like the night Thomas had first entered his restaurant, Mr. Johnson collapsed in his own dining hall. His employees rushed to help, calling an ambulance. Soon he was taken to the hospital, unconscious and weak. Days turned into weeks. His treatment was complex, and the bills stacked higher. His family worried constantly, unsure how they would pay for it all. The restaurant itself was on the verge of closing. The strong man who once fed strangers now lay powerless, dependent on others. One morning, a new doctor walked into Mr. Johnson's hospital room. His coat was white, his presence calm, his eyes warm. Mr. Johnson blinked, weak and tired, as the doctor gently checked his vitals. Something about the young man felt familiar. "Don't worry, sir," the doctor said softly. "You are in good hands. We'll take care of you." Mr. Johnson managed a faint smile, though he did not yet recognize the face in front of him. The years had changed both of them too much. Days passed, and the doctor visited faithfully, speaking with unusual kindness and patience. He encouraged Mr. Johnson when despair crept in, reminding him to stay strong. His words carried warmth, as if he knew what it felt like to be powerless. Finally, one afternoon, as the doctor adjusted his medication, Mr. Johnson whispered, "Why are you so kind to me, doctor? Most treat me like just another patient, but you treat me like family." The young doctor smiled, his eyes glistening. "Because once, years ago, you fed a poor boy when no one else would. You gave him hope, and that boy was me." Mr. Johnson's breath caught. His eyes widened as memories of the shivering child in torn clothes returned. His lips trembled, and tears filled his tired eyes. "Thomas, is it really you?" "Yes, sir," Thomas replied, holding his hand. "I never forgot the soup you gave me. It saved more than my body. It saved my will to live. And now, it's my turn to help you." Emotion flooded the room. Mr. Johnson cried silently, overwhelmed by the circle life had drawn. "I never thought that small act would return to me like this," he whispered. From that day forward, Thomas personally oversaw every detail of Mr. Johnson's treatment. He made sure the restaurant owner lacked nothing, neither medicine nor comfort. Bills were waived, expenses covered, and the best care was provided. Word spread among the hospital staff. Nurses whispered about the doctor who paid for his patients' treatment. Some thought it was charity. Others guessed it was a family bond. None knew the real story, the story of a bowl of soup and a starving boy. As weeks turned into months, Mr. Johnson's health improved. Strength returned slowly, and the lines of suffering began to fade from his face. Every time he saw Thomas, gratitude filled his heart. One evening, sitting by the hospital window, Mr. Johnson said, "Thomas, you didn't just heal my body, you healed my faith in humanity. I thought the world had forgotten kindness, but you showed me it never dies." Thomas replied softly, "Kindness is a seed. You planted it in me long ago, and it grew into something bigger than both of us. That soup gave me strength to become who I am today." When Mr. Johnson was finally discharged, the hospital staff lined the hall to see him off. The owner, who once gave food freely, walked out, supported by the boy he once helped. Life had come full circle in a way only destiny could design. Back at the restaurant, Mr. Johnson reopened with renewed hope. He placed a framed photo of soup and bread near the counter, with a sign, "One bowl of kindness can feed a lifetime of hope." Customers often asked about it, but he simply smiled. Thomas became a frequent visitor, not as a starving boy, but as a doctor and friend. Together they shared meals, memories, and silent gratitude. Both knew their bond went beyond food and medicine. It was the bond of souls connected by compassion. Years later, Thomas was invited to speak at a conference of doctors and leaders. He told the story of his life, beginning with hunger on a cold night and ending with the kindness of a stranger. The audience listened in silence, many with tears in their eyes. He concluded his speech with words that echoed deeply. The world doesn't change through grand gestures. It changes through small acts of love. One bowl of soup changed my destiny. The crowd rose in applause, touched by the simple truth. Mr. Johnson, now older but stronger, watched from the audience. Pride and humility filled his heart as he realized his life had been more meaningful than he ever imagined. After the speech, journalists asked Thomas if he believed destiny had chosen him. He smiled gently. "Destiny didn't choose me. Kindness did. And kindness will always choose us, if we allow it." The story spread worldwide. Articles, videos, and speeches carried the tale of the boy and the restaurant owner. People from different countries shared it, inspired to believe that kindness can truly transform lives. Strangers began to pay meals forward in restaurants, inspired by the story. Others volunteered, donated, or simply smiled more at those in need. The ripple effect of that one act continued to grow endlessly. Thomas never sought fame or recognition. For him, the greatest reward was seeing Mr. Johnson alive, smiling, and at peace. "That's enough," he often said. "That's worth more than any award." In quiet moments, Mr. Johnson often reflected, "That night, I thought I was feeding a poor boy," he told his family. "But in truth, I was feeding my own soul." The bond between the two men became legendary in their community. People often pointed at them with admiration, saying, "There goes the boy who became a doctor, and the man who believed in him." Years passed, but neither forgot the night of soup and bread. It was retold at schools, churches, and family dinners. Generations grew up hearing the tale, passing it on as a lesson of faith and kindness. And whenever Thomas passed by a hungry child, he stopped without hesitation. He fed them, remembering the night his own story had changed. For him, kindness was no longer an act, it was a way of living. The moral remained clear and timeless. Kindness never dies. A small act can echo across decades, turning strangers into family and despair into hope. One bowl of soup was enough to prove that love is the greatest medicine of all.